Unless we started at home.
That's the Gold Lady's castle.
Then we went. We started at home.
That's the Gold Lady's
and
castle.
Then went to Salmonberry.
What's that plant thing
and
on
then
top?
went to the
Oh, those are definitely
shop.
Salmonberry. Some sort of
And
clock.
then we bought the house.
This is the
And
princess's
then we
house.
met the salmon.
This looks like a dinner party with the old bear and the very old beaver. Yes.
Okay, that...
What's in there?
See,
Another letter?
here's my problem with that puzzle, is that clearly the letter from home was the last one chronologically, because that was 1996, which happened after everything else. So that's why, since there was a letter from home, that's why I thought the castle had to be last, because it was the last one chronologically. But it looks like the solution was you had to start at home, which was represented by the letter, like, and then that, yeah, I feel like that solution was flawed. That did not. Yeah, I'm not.
The princess is
I'm having
lost.
issues with that.
Is this from the Book of Goblins?
Not that I know of.
Well, sure looks like it could be.
The princess is lost. Once upon a time in an ancient and deep forest. So this is a chapter that was never put into the book. Once upon a time in an ancient and deep forest, there lived a wise princess in a big wooden house. She had made it through the woods and to that house without nothing left but the clothes on her back and a single item from her old life, a splendid tiara. She lost almost everything in her desperate flight from the mad hunter. The trees tore the rucksack from her back and shredded her dress and left a pattern of red welts on her skin. But through it all, she clutched the tiara close to her chest, fearing any misstep could cause it to fall from her arms and break. The tiara had its own spot in the big wooden house, a pillow near the window where sun would catch on its surface to shine and wink. The princess could stare for hours at the tiara, marveling in its beauty and running her thumb down its curves. Every morning she would wake and she would tend to it, polishing its without an apostrophe. Oh, no, because, yeah, that's right. It's because it's not it is. It's without an apostrophe is correct. Come on, Hark. Its every surface to be sure it shone as brightly as it possibly could. Then she would pluck it up, place it on her head, and walk the woods, feeling somehow more complete. Because what, after all, was a princess without a crown? Every night she would place it upon its pillow, give it a quick kiss, and go to bed. On her way, she would pause and glance back to be sure it was still there. She hated to be separated from it, but she knew it was the safest on the pillow while she slept. This is a long story. One night, the princess woke to a raging storm. The wind howled against the walls, rattling the windows in their panes. Fearing a gust might burst open a window and blow the tiara to the ground, she plucked it from its pillow and brought it to bed with her. All through the night, she held the tiara close, and in the morning, she woke to find herself still cradling it. The storm had passed, and the princess relaxed. That day was the same as any other, though she perhaps gave the tiara an even more thorough cleaning, grateful as she was that nothing had gone wrong. That night, she placed the tiara upon its pillow, gave it a quick kiss, and went to bed, pausing on her way to be sure it was still there. In the morning, she woke and sensed immediately that something was wrong. In the living room, the tiara lay upon the ground, broken, dull, and faded. Nothing else in the room had changed. The pillow was exactly where she had left it. The window was closed. There had been no storm, no wind, no sign that anything at all could have gone amiss. Only the broken tiara mute upon the ground. She picked it up and held it in her arms with a guttural cry, but though she tried to fix and to polish it, it was gone, beyond repair, and with no shine left. Was it because of the goblins? The princess held the tiara through the day and through the next night, sitting in the same spot at the window where she used to polish it. When the sun rose, she looked outside, and her gaze fixed on a sapling. She remembered how the sapling had survived the winter, clinging to life despite the frozen, unforgiving earth. Without a word, she went out and buried the tiara in the ground beneath the sapling, and as the final scoop of dirt fell, the tiara felt truly gone, and with it, the final link to her old self. She could only go forward and find a new place for herself in this world, where she was no longer truly a princess in a tiara and a beautiful gown, but a wan woman, alone in a deep and ancient wood. And that was how the princess lost her most precious treasure and her title. Hey, this is just like that other story. Yeah, that's different version.
And that was how the princess lost her most precious
That
treasure
was different from
and
before.
her title. That was the story she read us that night.
Yeah.
God. It makes sense now.
Yeah,
She got pregnant.
she got pregnant.
And had another sibling?
And she ran away to start a new life.
Mm-hmm.
And then she made her way to Delos Crossing,
Yeah.
where she was finally happy. But then the baby died.
Oh. That was her tiara. Her tiara was the baby.
I can't even imagine how she must have felt. She left everything behind. Built a whole new life for him. And then he was just gone.
Yeah.
I guess having us helps her move on. But when it looked like we were gonna be taken away, she snapped.
Yeah, because she lost one child already.
She just couldn't lose any more children.
That
It
makes
really
sense.
wasn't anything we did.
I don't know what I'm supposed to do with all this.
I don't know either.
I don't either, but all I wanted was to understand what happened to her. And now I do.
Yeah. But we still haven't seen what's in that chest.
Probably the identity of their dad. Alexander. I'm a little upset that I
Okay,
missed that one
so
collectible.
how do we open it?
It's one thing if I miss like 2 or 3 collectibles, but when you only miss 1 so far.
We'll get to those later. Let's finish this one, okay?
Okay, so I guess after we open this box, we'll get to those. So let's take a look. O, then O, and then L, and then E. Okay.
All right.
Olay.
Should be easy enough.
O, and then L. Ole, 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 ole. Ole, ole. Ole, 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 ole. Okay. Is that not what it is? Oh, it's a different color. Yellow O, red L. Yellow O, red L, orange E.
Why don't we just break this open? There's
Yellow.
a crowbar right downstairs.
What? No. You don't want to try and figure out what all this means?
I'm so done with her riddles.
Red L, cool your jets. And orange E. Leo, the lion. The lion? Leo?
Yes.
Then she found her true happiness, the tiara. This is amazing. This house.
Did it just get darker in here?
Is it like... It'd be cool if there was like black light that showed new things.
A baby blanket. A baby blanket.
It's to Allison and Ollie.
Ollie. She
The
noticed.
name. Dear Allison and Ollie, we write
I was
stories...
her son.
Dear Allison and Ollie, we write stories to understand, to understood, to understand, but it looks like understood. It definitely looks like understood there, and be understood. But what good is a story without a first act? I'm sorry I kept mine from you for so long. All my love, goblins. So,
Why does she have a photo of that tree locked in here?
because that's where she buried. Oh, is that where she buried the tiara? So is that where she buried their sibling? That's kind of dark. That's the child.
Is that...
Leo Ronan.
Leo. L-E-O. Leo Ronan. That's his name. Leo.
Why didn't she tell us about him? Why didn't she tell us any of this?
I mean, it's fucking terrible. That's why.
Yeah.
Allie, did we do the right thing opening this?
We did. It's better we know what happened, even if it's hard. And there's one more thing we need to see.
Are you sure?
Yes.
So he actually was born. It wasn't like
Come on.
she had a
Let's go to the dock.
miscarriage.
It's time to finish this.
It wasn't like a miscarriage. It was the child actually was born and was in her arms. And oh my gosh, as somebody who has a baby right now.
Hey, now that we're done with the important stuff, maybe we can take a crack at these?
Probably going to give us the last figurine. This is probably going to give us the last figurine, and it's going to tease me the fact that I'm missing one. I wanted to say something else too, really briefly about their mom's reaction to Tyler being transgender, or just people in general, parents in general's reactions to transgender. And this was mentioned in one of my comments, and I think chapter 1 story, when I wholeheartedly agree, and I feel that it's a very good point. So I'm just going to preface this and say 100%, like, ultimately, if you are a trans person and you truly believe deep in your heart that you were not born with the correct gender, and that you believe that you can only receive true happiness and really feel right in your own skin by, declaring and obviously, admitting to yourself and to the world that you're trans, and then going through some version of transition, surgery or not, going through some sort of transition for you to feel like you are your true self. That, of course, your happiness is, of course, the most important thing. So I'm just going to preface it with that. That being said, I do sympathize loved ones, parents especially, and close relatives, and even close friends, who do feel a bit of sadness when they discover that someone is transitioning. And I want to say that it shouldn't be because they don't want you to be happy. They don't want the trans person to be happy. I doubt that is typically the case at all. It's more of, you knew this person as this person for however many years, and then you kind of evolve and change into a different person. Like, in the inside you're still the same, but it's not exactly, I feel like it's still different from, say, when I came out to my family and I came out to my parents. The argument could be made, I don't know you anymore, and you're like a different person now. And I'm like, to me, I could argue, no, I'm still the same person. I feel like the fact that I am attracted to men does not change, like, fundamentally who I am. You just learn something about myself that you didn't learn before. And, it's really not, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that huge of an adjustment to come up with by comparison to somebody who's like, who you knew was, for all intents and purposes, a girl or a boy, and now are transitioning into the opposite gender. That, I think, can be a lot more difficult for people to digest and, ultimately accept and absorb. Even though I'd like to believe that, your family can be happy for you and supportive of you, but still have some very understanding sadness. One point that was given in the comment is that, when you transition, part of it is changing your name. I think for most people, when they transition, they do change their name, and then their previous name is known as the dead name. I actually didn't realize that there was a term called dead name until that was pointed out to me in the comment. And this is that the dead name is the name that your parents chose for you, and they knew you for at least your childhood up to the point, they knew you as this name, and now you're changing the name that they hopefully lovingly gave you. My son, we spent a lot of time coming up with the quote unquote perfect name. And so a lot of our child, the way we identify with our child, part of it, not all of our son is the name of the son, but it is a part of it because that's how we name them. That's how we call them. That's how we refer to them and identify them as by name. And having that name die, of course, if any of my children turn out to be trans, of course I'm going to be supportive. Of course I'm going to tell them to do whatever it is that is right for them and whatever will make them happy, of course. But, there's still going to be that part that'll still sting and hurt a little bit, knowing that, I really liked this name that I gave to my child, but they hate it or they don't identify with it. And so they're going to throw it away and bury it and call it a dead name and move on to a different name. So, yeah, I think that it is very realistic. It's very human. It's understandable for there to be some sadness for that aspect of transition. And I certainly would like to believe that they should not be judged, or they should not be have our finger wagged at them and says, you should not be upset about something as silly as that, or you should be 100% happy and 100% completely overjoyed with the whole transition spot. I feel like that's a little insensitive and a very unrealistic. And I think that, I can imagine that me coming out as a gay person, as a gay man, was an adjustment for my family. And I thought it was very reasonable for there to be an adjustment for them. I think it would be silly of me to expect the ideal, oh, well, that's fine, honey, you're perfect, whatever it is, you're perfect just the way you believe that you are sexuality-wise. Yes, there are definitely parents and family members who react that way, and that's wonderful. But I think it would be really silly of me to have that expectation, from the get-go. I think that would be unrealistic. And so at the same time, I think that I do feel that it is okay for there to be a mourning process for a family member, a parent, when you discover transition, your child is trans. And I don't want people to feel like they're not being supportive because they feel this way, or they're anti-trans or transphobic. Hopefully nobody thinks that just because a family member is struggling with it in that way. So just wanted to point that out. Coming from myself as a parent, I get it. I get the grief that might occur.
The very old beaver's repair list.
That's the story where the princess's house gets damaged by a storm and the animals help her fix it.
Yeah. What did they do to fix it again?
Looks like this thing. The beaver fixes the house. Once upon a time, I don't remember who the beaver is. Once upon a time, in an ancient and deep forest, there lived a wise princess in a big wooden house. One night, a particularly violent storm shook the house. It shook the shingles on the roof and the planks in the walls. It even shook the beams on which the house stood, blowing the whole thing near to the ground. The princess hid in a closet, fearing the house would come down on her as she slept. In the morning, the house was still standing, but it was badly damaged. The storm had blown shingles off the roof and planks off the walls, and even bent a post upon which the house stood. The first two things she could fix, but the last concerned her. What will I do? Despaired the wise princess, for though she knew many things, she did not know how to fix the big wooden house. Just then, the old beaver came by to see if the princess had any trouble in the storm. When he found her nailing planks back into place, he said, "Stop, princess! Let me do that for you." "I'm happy to do it," said the princess, "but if you want to help me with the roof, you may." So they repaired the roof. When the repair was done with the roof and the walls, they examined the bent support post. I could throw my body against it, said the old bear. Oh, that's not the beaver. I could throw my body against it, said the old bear. I am very large. He stretched up onto his hind legs and, being sure the princess could appreciate how very large he was, then charged straight at the post. He threw his body against it with an impressive thud. The impact moved the post, but too far, and it ended up bent in the other direction. Thanks a lot. The princess had no reason to trust the old bear, except that he had kind eyes, and so she slowly made her way down the tree. When she reached the ground, the bear only watched her, and so she supposed she was not going to be eaten today. Thank you, she told the old bear. Of course, he said. Can I walk with you back to your home? Of course, said the princess. And so the princess and the old bear walked together through the forest back to the big wooden house. After that day, the princess would occasionally find gifts from the bear. A fresh-caught salmon, like the recipe that Sam gave us, a handful of ripe berries, and a newly bloomed bluebell. One morning, when a sudden thaw flooded the path out of the princess's home, the old bear was there, and she rode his back across the river. The old bear began to think that the princess should be his mate. After all, she had no mate, and she needed one, and he could keep her warm and provide her a much more suitable den, and catch fish for her and protect her from the wolves. So I feel like Mary Ann really was falling for Sam at this point, and protect her from the wolves. She in turn would brush out his fur and pick berries without smooshing half of them, and scratch that one part of his back he couldn't reach. And with how she took care of the goblins, she would be an excellent mother for his cubs. Oh, wow. One day, the old bear came with a ring of spruce and asked the princess to be his bride. I'm sorry, said the princess. You are a very good friend, and I appreciate all you've done for me, but I cannot marry you. You're a bear, I'm a princess, it would never work. He was married. And she already has been, given a hard time by her parents for having a child out of wedlock, so that's probably was a big part of her deciding to turn the bear down. So maybe Sam did, go after her. You're a bear, I'm a princess, it would never work. The old bear was crushed. Can we still be friends, he asked. We will always be friends, said the princess, but I will never marry you. The old bear and the princess carried on their friendship, and after 1 year he tried again to ask her to be his bride, but once again she refused him. This happened 1 year later, and 1 year after that, and then finally the princess said, Old bear, you are my dear friend, and I appreciate all you have done for me, but I would sooner you have left me to the wolves than marry you, and that is how it will always be. I have my hands full with the 2 goblins who live under my house, and they are all I need. Though that wounded the old bear deeply, but it was finally enough to stop his proposals. They remained friends, and he continued to give her gifts of fresh salmon and ripe berries and newly bloomed bluebells. But the old bear never asked the princess to be his bride, much as he might have wanted to. And that is how the princess befriended the old bear, and how she refused him. Wait, that wasn't the... Okay. Why did... Alright, I'm sorry. I read... Right, that was... I don't know how the pages got flipped, but... Okay. Sorry, guys. Somehow it flipped back. Anyway, back to the repair, the house. Beaver fixes the house. The impact moved the post, but too far, and ended up bent the other direction. The wise princess decided more precision was needed. She thought then of the very old bear who kept an excellent crafted dam. Perhaps she can help. The very old beaver. She thought then of the very old beaver who kept an excellent crafted dam. Perhaps she can help. She went looking for the very old beaver and found the industrious animal hard at work slapping down mud on a part of her dam that had blown apart in the storm. Most of the structure was unharmed because the beaver was very good at building things. The princess knew she had come to the right place. Beaver, she said, my house is damaged in the storm. Would you help me fix it? I believe I could do that, yes, said the very old beaver, and she paused at fixing her own den to follow the princess. The very old beaver examined the big wooden house and nodded. It will be an easy fix, she said, and she set about ringing the post with loud slaps of her tail. When she was done, the wise princess stroked the beaver's head. Thank you, beaver, she said. The wind blew the shingles off the roof and the planks off the walls and even bent this post. Now, thanks to you, I still have a home. So the roof, the planks on the walls, and the post. Think nothing of it, said the very old beaver, who returned to work on her own den once again. That winter, the very old beaver grew ill, very ill. She was not able to fix her den, nor to gather food. When the princess found out, she set about delivering meals to the beaver. She brought stews of corn and beans and baskets full of bark and twigs from the beaver's favorite aspen. One day, the princess noticed that the beaver's den had begun to fall apart. She set about fixing it, and though she was not as talented as the very old beaver, the fix kept the creature warm and dry. "Thank you," said the very old beaver. "Of course," said the princess. "You helped me when the storm blew my house near to the ground. Thanks to you, I still have a home, and I am happy to do the same." The princess continued to nurse the old beaver until the day she came to the den and the forest was still. No birds sang, no branches rustled, no small things skittered within the underbrush. "Oh," said the princess, staring sadly at the dam, for she knew the old beaver had passed on. "Goodbye, my friend." And that is how the very old beaver saved the big wooden house, and how the wise princess repaid her kindness. So there was a very old beaver, but she passed away. So the roof, the walls, fix the roof,
She fixed the roof shingles.
and then fix the wall,
She fixed the planks that were blown off the walls.
and then she fixed this
She
support.
slapped the post with. All right.
Look,
Damn. That must have been rough on Eddie.
Yeah, he doesn't really like to talk about her.
I haven't even read it yet. Why are you commenting on something I haven't read about yet? Dear Mary Ann, you cover your ears every time I try to have this conversation with you, so I thought I'd have a better chance doing this in a letter. I know you don't like saying goodbye, so I'll keep my melancholic rambling short and sweet. I want to thank you with all my heart for taking care of me for these past few months. I can't even imagine how exhausting it must have been for you to look after a sick old lady when you also have 2 small children at home. So it must be Eddie's mom. That's Eddie's mom. I figured it was probably Eddie's mom because she was the only person that we knew, the only female I knew of that passed away in the story. I know you want me to keep fighting this disease and hoping for recovery. Oh. Maybe this is from Eddie's mom. This letter is from Eddie's mom. It's got beautiful handwriting. I can't even imagine how exhausting it must have been for you to look after a sick old lady when you have 2 small children at home. I know you want me to keep fighting this disease and hoping for recovery, but it's always been a great strength of mine to know when it's time to let go, and that time has come. Okay, so this is, Carol. Carol, that's right. I'd like to ask you for one last favor. Please take care of Eddie after I'm gone. My poor boy puts on a brave front ever since his father died, but I know he's in pain. I would be so much more at peace knowing he still has family. Maybe he could teach the kids how to fish. He loves spending time with them. Thank you for the warmth and the peace you brought to my life. Give the kids a kiss for me, will you? Carol. Got it. The crafty goblin's good deeds.
Crafty goblins' good deeds.
Of course, the goblins had to help out the creatures of the forest to pay off their debt to the pelican.
Well, what did they do?
You know, I don't really remember.
Guess we're gonna find out. The crafty goblin's good deeds. Where is that? The frog, the bear, and the princess beat Princess' house. The princess parted the goblins' ice cave. The princess make new friends. The goblin tricked the man. The goblins earn their voice. The goblins save the old bear. The goblins meet the ice troll. The goblins trick the muskrat. I don't know. The goblins save the old bear? No. Or the old beaver. The crafty goblin's good deeds. The crafty goblin's good... Drop the beehive. The beaver fixes the house. The princess parted the goblins and the ice cave. That doesn't look like the princess and the 2 thieves. The princess